The Riyadh sky that afternoon burned like copper, yet Rafi's steps did not falter. Sweat rolled down his temples, soaking his worn-out shirt as he swept the vast courtyard of the Al-Zaran family mansion. The desert heat pressed on his back like punishment, but his hands didn't stop. Every sweep of the broom was an act of survival. This young man from Pakistan had come to Saudi Arabia with only one goal: to earn enough to lift his mother out of poverty. Each insult, each harsh command he swallowed silently, believing that patience was also a form of worship. "Hey, Pakistani, sweep faster!" Foreman Kareem's voice cracked like a whip from across the courtyard. "You move slower than a dying camel." Rafi lowered his head. His lips trembled, but his voice never rose. "Be patient, Rafi," he told himself. "Every drop of sweat is a prayer. Mother is waiting back home for your help." Though treated as a mere laborer, Rafi carried a secret gift, a skill passed down from his late grandfather. In his village near Multan, people knew him for traditional healing, massages, pressure points, and the use of herbal oils. But in a foreign land, he dared not show it. Here, a servant was just a servant. That night, while Rafi was cleaning the back garden, one of the senior servants rushed toward him, panic written all over his face. "Quick! Madame Salma has fainted in the bathroom." Without hesitation, Rafi dropped his broom and ran. Inside the marble-tiled washroom lay a woman in a white silk dress, her skin pale, her lips bluish. She was Madame Salma al-Zahran, the wealthy widow of a prominent oil businessman. Since her husband's death 2 years ago, illness had made her frail and distant. "Call the doctor," shouted Kareem. "He's out of town," another servant cried. The air was filled with confusion. No one dared to move closer. Rafi knelt beside her. "Bismillah," he whispered softly, his trembling fingers reaching for the small pouch in his pocket. From it, he took out a small bottle of eucalyptus oil, something he always carried for comfort. The familiar scent reminded him of home. Gently, he rubbed it on her temples, then pressed key nerve points on her neck and back, just as his grandfather had taught him. "Oh Allah, help me save her," he prayed quietly. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then suddenly, Madame Salma gasped for breath. A soft cough escaped her lips and her eyes fluttered open. The servants froze in disbelief. "She's awake!" one of them shouted. Rafi stepped back, lowering his gaze in relief. "Alhamdulillah, Madam is safe," he said humbly. But instead of gratitude, a sharp voice struck him. "Who touched me?" Salma's tone was filled with anger. I only tried to help you, Madame," Rafi stammered. Her hand rose and slapped him across the face. "How dare you touch me without permission?" The room fell silent. Rafi bowed his head. "Forgive me, Madame. I only feared for your life. Leave," she said coldly. Rafi walked out, his cheek burning, his heart heavy, unaware that this very night would change both their destinies forever. The night settled quietly over Riyadh, carrying the cool desert wind across the marble walls of the Al-Zaran mansion. In his small servant's room at the back of the house, Rafi sat on his narrow bed, staring at the old brass coin his grandfather had given him. The mark of the slap still burned on his cheek, but the pain in his chest was far greater. "If only you were here, grandfather," he whispered softly. "You would have said, 'Never regret doing good, even when people misunderstand it.'" Outside, the wind howled through the palm trees. The palace looked peaceful, but inside, unease lingered. In her room upstairs, Madame Salma sat before a mirror. Her reflection looked ghostly pale. She had fainted earlier and still felt weak, yet her mind was not calm. What puzzled her most was the warmth she felt when that servant touched her. Not a sinful warmth, but something soothing, almost divine. Who was that man, she wondered. What did he do to me? When the maid came in with her medicine, Salma asked, "That Pakistani boy who helped me, what's his name?" "Rafi, Madame," the maid replied timidly. "He's still working in the garden." Salma paused, a flicker of curiosity lighting her tired eyes. "Let him continue." "Don't say anything." The next morning, the mansion buzzed with gossip. Servants whispered about the daring worker who had touched Madame's body. He'll be sent home today, one said. No one dares to touch the mistress and stay. Rafi heard them all but kept sweeping silently. The sun was harsh, but his heart remained steady. From the balcony above, Salma watched him. The young man's shirt was torn at the collar, his skin darkened by labor. Yet there was something different about him, a calmness, a strange dignity. When he wiped the sweat from his face, she noticed his rough, strong hands, the same hands that had revived her the night before. Later that day, she sent for him. Rafi walked into the grand living room, his head bowed low. Salma sat elegantly in a light blue gown, her expression unreadable. "You're the one who helped me last night?" she asked coldly. "Yes, madam." "You fainted and no doctor was available." "I only tried to help." "With what?" she pressed. "Your coins and cheap oil?" Her tone was biting, but beneath it was hidden curiosity. Rafi spoke humbly. "Madame, in my village, we use traditional therapy called scraping. It helps release trapped air and toxins in the body. It's simple but sometimes works when medicine doesn't." "Are you saying I'm full of poison?" she asked sharply. "No, madame," he replied quickly. I only wanted to ease your pain." For a long moment, Salma was silent. Her eyes fell on his hands again. "When you touched me," she murmured, "I felt something warm. Something I haven't felt in years." Rafi bowed his head. "It's not me, madame. Healing only comes from Allah." Her eyes softened slightly. "Fine," she said. "You may continue working here." "But never touch me again without permission?" Rafi nodded gratefully. "Thank you, madame." As he left, she watched him go. And for the first time in years, she felt her heart beating with curiosity instead of pain. That night, a strange calm filled the Al-Zahran mansion. For the first time in years, Madame Salma slept peacefully. The ache in her back, which had tormented her since her husband's death, was gone. She woke before dawn, surprised by how light her body felt. Standing before her mirror, she touched her neck where Rafi had applied the oil. The pain had vanished completely. "That boy," she whispered. "What did he do to me?" Down in the servants' quarters, Rafi was already awake. He prayed quietly, thanking Allah for giving him the chance to help someone. He didn't know what would happen next, but in his heart he felt calm. When morning came, the household was unusually silent. Everyone sensed the shift in the air. Madame, who had been weak for months, was now walking in the garden, her white scarf fluttering in the breeze. She looked stronger, healthier, and even smiled at the sight of blooming flowers. The servants exchanged puzzled glances. "Is this magic?" one whispered. "How can she recover so fast?" Later that day, a foreign doctor visited the mansion for a checkup. After examining Salma, he frowned deeply. "Madame, this is impossible," he said in disbelief. "All your medical reports show improvement. The infection, the nerve stiffness, even the chronic fatigue, gone overnight. What treatment did you use?" Salma hesitated, then said softly, "A servant helped me. He used oil and a coin, something traditional." The doctor's eyes widened. "A servant? That's dangerous. You allowed an untrained man to touch your body?" She raised an eyebrow coldly. "I allowed him to save my life." As the doctor left in frustration, Salma's gaze drifted toward the garden. Through the window, she saw Rafi sweeping leaves again, his movements slow and humble. Something stirred inside her, a feeling she couldn't define. Gratitude? Curiosity? Or something much deeper? That evening, she called Rafi once again. He entered quietly, keeping his head low. "Rafi," she said, her voice softer than before. "The doctor said my illness is gone." "How do you explain that?" He looked startled. "Madame, I can't explain anything." "Healing belongs to Allah. I'm only an instrument." Salma studied him closely. "Your hands, they don't feel ordinary. When you touched me, it was like warmth flowing through my veins." Rafi smiled faintly. Maybe it was just your faith returning, madame. Sometimes the body follows the heart. Those words struck her deeply. She had spent years locked in grief, refusing to live after her husband's death. Yet this poor servant, with his simple words, had reminded her what faith felt like. You're different from other workers, she said quietly. Rafi lowered his gaze. I'm no different, madam. I just try to do good even when no one notices. Salma didn't reply. She only nodded and dismissed him. But as he left, her heart trembled, not with anger this time, but with a strange sense of peace. That night, she touched the faint scrape marks on her back and whispered, "Those hands, they are not ordinary." Days passed, but the memory of that night lingered in both hearts. For Rafi, it was a mixture of relief and humiliation. Relief that he had saved a life, and humiliation that his act of kindness had been misunderstood. For Madame Salma, it was confusion. Each time she thought of that servant, she felt something stir deep within her, something she couldn't name. The morning sun painted the Al-Zaran mansion in gold. Servants rushed about, polishing floors and arranging breakfast, but there was tension in their movements. Everyone whispered about the Pakistani boy who had dared to touch their mistress. Some said he would be dismissed soon. Others said he possessed black magic. Rafi heard every whisper, but he continued to sweep silently, his eyes focused on his work. His only thought was to complete the month and send money back home to his mother in Multan. From the balcony above, Madame Salma stood quietly, her robe flowing around her as she watched him. The desert breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel weak. She walked without pain, breathed without struggle. How strange, she murmured. That boy's hands, they healed me when all the doctors failed. Later that morning, she called her personal physician, a man from Lebanon who had treated her for years. He examined her thoroughly, and his face turned pale. Madam, your back pain and nerve spasms, they're gone. Even the inflammation has vanished overnight. This is remarkable. What caused it? Salma asked. The doctor hesitated. Perhaps divine intervention? Or maybe you changed your treatment? Salma smiled faintly. Yes, perhaps something divine. That evening, she called Rafi to the medical room where the doctor had examined her. The air was heavy with the scent of antiseptic and eucalyptus. Rafi entered quietly, unsure of why he was there. Rafi, she said, the doctor is puzzled by my recovery. Tell him what you did that night, Rafi hesitated. Madam, I only used a small amount of eucalyptus oil and pressed nerve points to improve circulation. It's a village remedy. The doctor frowned. That's dangerous nonsense. Scraping with coins can damage tissue. Madam, you shouldn't allow untrained men to perform such rituals. Salma's eyes narrowed. Rituals? He saved my life when none of you could. For 2 years you gave me medicines, and I only grew weaker. He touched me once, and I'm alive. The doctor bowed his head, embarrassed, and left in silence. When the door closed, only Rafi and Salma remained. You embarrassed me before a foreign doctor, she said coldly. I'm sorry, madame, Rafi replied humbly. I didn't mean to offend anyone. It was only Allah's will. Salma looked at him for a long moment, her eyes softer now. I don't know what God has given you, Rafi. But your hands are not ordinary. Rafi lowered his gaze. Ordinary hands can do miracles, madame, if the heart behind them is pure. Her lips trembled slightly, and for the first time in years, Salma smiled. That night, Riyadh's air felt cooler than usual. The stars hung low over the city, and the wind carried the faint scent of desert sand mixed with eucalyptus oil. The same oil that now reminded Salma of that young servant's touch. In the quiet garden behind the mansion, Rafi sat cross-legged near a small fountain, his prayer beads moving slowly between his fingers. His mind was restless. Madame Salma's words echoed in his head. Your hands are not ordinary. He looked at his palms, rough from years of labor, cracked and calloused. I am just a poor man, he thought. If there is healing in these hands, it is only because of Allah. As he raised his eyes toward the sky, a voice called out in panic from the main house. Rafi, hurry up! Madame has fainted again. Without a second's hesitation, Rafi sprinted into the mansion. In the grand living room, Madame Salma lay unconscious on the sofa, her face pale and her lips trembling. The servants crowded around, shouting and arguing about what to do. Call the doctor, one said. He's not answering, another replied. Rafi pushed through the crowd. Please step aside, he said firmly. Karim, the foreman, scowled. What will you do, boy? You've already caused enough trouble. If you don't trust me, then leave me alone, Rafi replied, his voice calm but steady. The servants hesitated. Something in his tone carried conviction. He knelt beside Salma, opened the small pouch in his pocket, and took out the same old coin and a small bottle of oil. Gently, he rubbed the oil on her back and began scraping slowly, whispering prayers under his breath. The sound of the coin against skin filled the room, soft, rhythmic, almost sacred. Within minutes, Salma's breathing steadied. Her fingers twitched and color returned to her cheeks. The servants stared in disbelief. She's breathing again, an older maid whispered. Subhanallah. Salma's eyelids fluttered open. Her voice came weak but clear. Where am I? At home, madame, Rafi said softly. You fainted again, but you're safe now. For a moment, her eyes met his. There was no anger this time, and only gratitude and quiet wonder. Your hands, she murmured faintly, still feel the same. Warm and kind. Before Rafi could answer, Karim stormed into the room with 2 security guards. Enough of this nonsense, he shouted. Twice you've touched madam without permission. You've crossed the line. Rafi rose slowly, his expression calm. If I've done wrong, I'm ready to accept punishment. But if I had done nothing, madam might not be alive. The tension froze the air. Then, to everyone's shock, Salma raised her hand. Stop, she commanded. Leave him. If not for him, I would be dead tonight. The guard stepped back instantly. Silence filled the room. Everyone stared at her in disbelief. For the first time, Madame Salma had defended a servant. And that night, for reasons even she could not explain, she felt a strange sense of peace when she thought of Rafi's eyes, sincere, fearless, and pure. The next morning, the Al-Zahran mansion buzzed with quiet tension. Servants whispered in corners, exchanging glances filled with curiosity and suspicion. Some said Rafi was blessed. Others swore he practiced hidden magic. Yet one thing was undeniable. Madame Salma was alive and stronger than she had been in years. She walked down the marble stairs herself, draped in a white robe, her posture graceful but firm. The air inside the mansion felt lighter. The same servants who once avoided her now looked at her with renewed respect. But their eyes often drifted toward Rafi, the young Pakistani who had changed everything. Rafi, however, remained humble. He kept sweeping the yard, watering plants, and polishing the brass lamps as he had always done. The slap on his cheek had long faded, but the warmth of Madame's words still echoed in his chest. He did not see himself as a savior, only as a man who obeyed his conscience. That morning, while Rafi cleaned near the fountain, Salma appeared in the garden. Her presence was calm but commanding. The soft breeze played with her scarf as she looked around, enjoying the sunlight for the first time in months. When her eyes met Rafi's, he immediately bowed. Madam, he greeted. She nodded slightly. Rafi, thank you. Those 2 words startled him. He had imagined many reactions from her, but never gratitude. Madam, he replied humbly, it wasn't me who healed you. Healing belongs only to Allah. I was just a tool. Her lips curved faintly into a smile. Maybe. But some tools are chosen for a reason. Before he could respond, Karim appeared, his face red with anger. Madame, Forgive me, but this boy is dangerous. He's performing strange rituals in your house. The others are afraid. You must dismiss him. Rafi froze. He could feel all eyes on him, servants peering from behind the curtains, whispering under their breath. Salma turned slowly toward Karim. Her eyes were sharp. Rituals? Is saving a life now a sin in this house? Karim hesitated. Madam, his methods? They're not Islamic. Scraping skin with coins, burning oil. It's like sorcery. Salma's expression hardened. Then call it what you want. I call it mercy. The servants fell silent. Karim's jaw tightened, but he dared not argue. You are accusing without proof, Salma continued coldly. This man restored my life when your doctors failed for 2 years. If you think he's dangerous, perhaps you should leave. Karim's pride shattered. He bowed stiffly and left. The servants scattered, only Rafi remained, standing awkwardly. Madam, he said softly, I don't deserve such defense. I only wanted to help. Salma looked at him for a long time. Her voice softened again. And that is exactly why you deserve to stay. That night, Rafi prayed in his small room, tears glistening in his eyes. Oh Allah, he whispered, if you have placed a gift in my hands, let it serve others, not myself. And across the hall, Madame Salma stood before her mirror, touching the fading marks on her back. Your hands are not just healing hands, Rafi, she whispered. They awakened something I thought had died. My heart. The days that followed passed more calmly, but within the walls of the Al Zahran mansion, hearts were quietly changing. Salma began to spend more time in the garden where Rafi worked. Each afternoon, she would stroll among the palm trees while he watered the flowers or trimmed the hedges. The sight of him at work, humble, patient, and devoted, brought her a peace she hadn't felt in years. Madame, please don't stand too long, Rafi said one day, his tone respectful. Your back might ache again. Salma smiled faintly. You sound more like my personal doctor than a servant. Rafi lowered his eyes. I'm just doing my duty, madame. If it helps you stay healthy, that's enough for me. His words were simple, but they carried a sincerity that touched her heart. She found herself smiling more often, even laughing occasionally. Something no one in the mansion had seen since her husband's death. But not everyone was pleased. Karim, who had lost his influence over the household, began to watch Rafi with envy. The other servants whispered cruelly behind Rafi's back, claiming he was using his magic hands to win Madame's favor. Rafi ignored them all. His conscience was clear, and his intentions were pure. That night, as he was finishing his chores, Karim cornered him near the back gate. Who do you think you are, boy? Karim hissed. A servant playing holy healer? Don't think Madame's kindness will last forever. Rafi stayed silent, his head bowed. You're just a worker from the streets, Karim continued, his voice dripping with contempt. You think you can impress her with your fake prayers and pity? Rafi took a deep breath. I never asked for her praise. I only wanted Ty to serve honestly, Karim smirked. Honesty won't save you when I decide to ruin you. He left, his laughter echoing in the dark hallway. Rafi clenched the old coin in his pocket and whispered a silent prayer. Oh Allah, protect me from envy and keep my heart clean. Meanwhile, upstairs, Madame Salma sat by her window, gazing at the moon. The silver light bathed her room, and memories of her late husband, Hamid, flooded her mind. She remembered the night of the accident, the explosion, the screams, the fire that took him away. For 2 years, that image had haunted her. But now, for the first time, the pain seemed distant. Rafi's calm presence had replaced it with something softer. A quiet gratitude, and something else she couldn't name. She picked up the small bottle of eucalyptus oil from her bedside table and smiled sadly. You brought me back to life, Rafi, she whispered. But why does my heart tremble every time I see you? Downstairs, in his small room, Rafi was lost in thought. He prayed long into the night, seeking strength. O Allah, if this feeling is a test, give me the courage to bear it. Let my admiration never cross the limits of decency. Two souls, separated by walls and worlds, lay awake under the same desert sky, both silently praying for guidance, unaware that their destinies were already entwined by something far greater than themselves. The following week brought whispers far beyond the mansion walls. Servants gossiped to neighbors, and soon even shopkeepers in Riyadh's nearby markets had heard the tale of the Pakistani servant with healing hands. Some called him blessed, others warned that he was a sorcerer who had cast a spell on Madame Salma. The rumors spread like desert wind, carrying both fascination and envy. Inside the mansion, Salma tried to ignore the noise. Her health was improving, her laughter returning, but deep down she felt restless. Every morning she would find herself looking out the window toward the garden, where Rafi worked quietly, never meeting her gaze unless spoken to. His humility fascinated her more than his gift. She had seen men bow to her for wealth, yet this poor worker showed no desire for reward. One evening, Salma called Rafi to the veranda where the sunset painted the sky orange and gold. "Rafi," she said softly, "do you believe in fate?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, madame. Fate is like the desert wind. We can't control its direction, but we can choose how to walk through it." She smiled faintly at his words. "For 2 years, I've lived with no faith in anything. Not people, not life. But since the night you helped me, something inside me has changed. I don't feel sick anymore. I feel alive." Rafi's heart tightened at her confession. "Madam, Allah never leaves anyone hopeless. Sometimes he sends comfort through unexpected hands." Salma's eyes glistened. "And maybe those hands were yours." He lowered his head. "I'm unworthy of such praise, madame." "I only did what I had to." Silence followed, not awkward, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. The wind brushed her scarf, and she felt her heart flutter, unsure if it was gratitude or something deeper. That night, Salma couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, staring at the moon. Her memories of her late husband, Hamid, came rushing back. The love, the laughter, the accident that took him away. She had buried her emotions with him, refusing to love or trust again. But now a servant's sincerity had cracked open the walls she had built around her heart. "Why, Rafi?" she whispered into the night. "Why does my heart feel warm when I see you?" Meanwhile, in his small room, Rafi lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He could still hear her voice in his mind. Every word from her carried weight. He felt admiration for her strength, her kindness, her pain, but he feared his heart was beginning to stray. "O Allah," he prayed softly, "if this feeling is a test, make me steadfast. Let respect remain pure and not turn into sin." Unbeknownst to them, their growing closeness was being watched. Karim, filled with jealousy and wounded pride, had been listening to servants whispering about the strange connection between Madame and the Pakistani worker. He clenched his fists in anger. "If she keeps protecting him," he muttered to himself, "I'll make sure he never steps foot in this house again." A storm was brewing, one that would soon test both hearts and faith. By the next morning, the storm had arrived, not of wind and sand, but of gossip and scandal. The servants' whispers had reached the ears of Salma's extended family. Her late husband's cousin, Khalid al-Zahran, a powerful businessman with influence in Riyadh, came to the mansion unannounced. His black luxury car pulled up before the grand gates, and within minutes, his loud voice echoed through the marble halls. "Salma!" he thundered as he entered the living room. "What is this I hear? You, a widow of honor, keeping company with a foreign servant?" Salma, dressed in a modest abaya, looked up calmly from her chair. "Mind your words, Khalid. You are in my house." He scoffed. "In your house, perhaps, but it still bears the Al-Zahran name. You're shaming the family with your foolishness. People are talking about your affection for a Pakistani boy." At those words, Rafi, who had been cleaning the hallway, froze. He stepped forward respectfully, his head bowed. "Sir, please don't speak to Madam that way. She is innocent. I only work here." Khalid glared at him, his face red with anger. "Silence," Servant. You've bewitched her with your tricks, haven't you? Using your so-called healing as an excuse to get close? Rafi's voice remained calm. I did nothing but try to save her life. That's all. Salma rose from her chair, her eyes fierce. Enough, Khalid. You dare insult a man who helped me when your expensive doctors failed? You speak of honor, yet where were you when I lay dying? Her words silenced him for a moment, but pride wouldn't let him back down. If you continue to defy the family, you'll lose everything. Your inheritance, your position, your reputation. Tears welled in Salma's eyes, but her voice did not shake. Then so be it. I will not destroy an innocent man to protect my name. Khalid's expression hardened. Very well. If you won't act, I will. He turned to the guards. Take this man out of my cousin's house. Now, Rafi stood motionless. It's all right, madame, he said softly. Let them. I don't want trouble, Salma rushed forward. Yin? No, Rafi. You've done nothing wrong, but the guards had already taken him by the arms. As he was led away, he looked back one last time. His eyes met hers, full of pain but also peace. Don't cry, madame, he said quietly. Whatever happens is Allah's will. That night, the mansion felt emptier than ever. Salma sat alone in her room, clutching the small bottle of eucalyptus oil he had used. Her heart ached, her chest tight. Rafi, she whispered through tears, I only wanted to protect you, but I lost you instead. Outside, the desert wind howled, carrying away the last warmth from the house, and somewhere on the outskirts of Riyadh, a lonely worker with rough hands and a soft heart whispered a prayer into the dark. Oh Allah, let her be safe, even if I am far away. 3 long months passed after Rafi's departure. The once lively Al-Zahran mansion had turned silent and cold. The flowers in the garden withered, and the sound of laughter had vanished. Madame Salma's illness returned. Her back ached, her chest tightened, and her nights were filled with restless dreams. No medicine helped. Even the best foreign doctors could not explain her condition. There's no physical cause, one said. Perhaps her heart is in pain. Khalid, realizing she was growing weaker, began to regret his actions. Maybe you should see that doctor again, he muttered awkwardly. There's no doctor who can cure me, Salma replied faintly. The one who did. You drove him away. That night, she dreamt of Rafi sitting under a palm tree, healing poor workers with his rough but gentle hands. Around him, people smiled and prayed for him. In the dream, he turned to her and said softly, Madam, wounds heal only when the heart forgives. When she awoke, tears were running down her face. I must find him, she whispered. 2 days later, dressed in a black abaya, Salma left the mansion in secret, accompanied only by her driver. She searched through the outskirts of Riyadh, asking street vendors and laborers if they knew a Pakistani man named Rafi who healed people. Finally, a young boy pointed down a dusty alley. He lives there, madame, always helping the sick. Her heart raced as she approached a small wooden house. From the open doorway, she saw him. Seated on the floor, gently treating an old man's swollen leg. There was no luxury, no servants, only humility and peace. When the old man left, Salma stepped forward, her eyes wet. Madame, Rafi whispered in disbelief, rising to his feet. You shouldn't be here. I had to come, she said softly. I searched everywhere. You cured my body, Rafi, but when you left, my soul became sick again. Rafi's voice trembled. Madam, I'm just a worker. Our worlds are different. She shook her head firmly. No, Rafi. Our Creator is the same. You healed me not with medicine, but with sincerity. You taught me what faith truly means. He looked away, his heart pounding. Madame, people will never understand. Let them talk, she said. I no longer live for them. I live for what's right. At that moment, the call to Maghrib prayer echoed through the air. Rafi smiled gently. Allow me to pray first, madam. Salma nodded. I'll wait. When he finished his prayer, peace glowed on his face. Salma watched him with awe. Rafi, she said, her voice shaking, you showed me that true healing comes not from wealth, but from a pure heart. Will you stay by my side, not as a servant, but as my partner in this life and the next? Rafi's eyes filled with tears. If that is what Allah wills, then I am honored. Months later, their small wedding took place in the humble prayer room where Rafi once prayed alone. Together, they turned the Al-Zaran mansion into Dar al-Shifa, a free medical home for the poor. Each day, people came seeking healing, and Salma would watch her husband treat them with those same blessed hands. Under the golden Riyadh sunset, she often whispered, "These hands once saved my life," and Rafi would smile and reply, "May they guide us both to paradise." The desert wind carried their prayer softly into the sky, a story of faith, love, and the miracle of two sincere hearts united by destiny.